welcome to Brilliant Botany. In this video tutorial, I'm going to discuss about plant disease forecasting. So the topic under the discussion will be meaning of the disease forecasting, advantages of plant disease forecasting, so methods, and finally with the examples. Firstly, we shall know what is this disease forecasting. Forecasting of plant diseases means predicting for the occurrence of the plant diseases in a specified area ahead of time, so that in advance we can take some of the suitable control measures to avoid losses. I can say that definition for the disease forecasting is disease forecast are the prediction of probable outbreaks or increase in the intensity of disease. And finally, this plant disease forecasting involves well organized teamwork and expenditure of time, energy, as well as money. The first spray warning services, which was established for our growers, were the Grapevine Downy Mildew Forecasting Scheme in France, Germany, and Italy in the year of 1920. Yes, this is the brief meaning of plant disease forecasting. Now let's see what are all the information that is required for plant disease forecasting. Yes, before telling you the information that is required for the disease forecasting, one thing I want to tell you that this forecasting is a part of the applied epidemiology. Then what is this epidemiology? Epidemiology is also called epiphytology, wherein it is a study of the outbreak of disease, its course, intensity, cause and effects, and as well as the various factors that are governing to it. Hope you will be familiar with the word epidemiology if you have watched my previous videos. If not, I would like to recommend you this watch the same. Okay, for the further information. Now coming back to the session, as I told you earlier that disease forecasting, it is a part of applied epidemiology. So here the knowledge of epidemiology is very much necessary to know the accurate forecasting. So the factors of epidemic and its components should be known in advance before forecasting is done. So let us see what are those factors of the epidemics and as well as the components. There are three factors of the epidemics if you see. The very first one is the host factor, secondly pathogen factors, and finally environmental factors. And now let us see what are all the components of each of these factors that are making responsible for our disease forecastings to become more accurate. Okay, so the very first component of the host factor is the prevalence of the susceptible varieties in the given locality. Getting? And next, response of the host at the different stages of the growth to activity of the pathogen. Say for example, some diseases are found during the seedling stages while other attack grown up plants. Getting? And the next component of the host is density and as well as the distribution of the host in a given locality. See, dense population of susceptible variety invite the quick spread of an epidemic. So, growing susceptible varieties in scattered locations and that too in a very limited area are less prone to the epiphytotic. So, these are all the host factors components. Getting? And next we'll move on to some of the pathogen factors, means the components of the pathogen factors. The very first component of the pathogen factor is amount of primary inoculum in the air, soil or the planting material. And next is the dispersal of inoculum. Next, the spore germination of the pathogen, infection rate of the pathogen, incubation period, sporulation on the infected host, redispersal, or also you can say dissemination of spores. Next, perinating stages of the pathogen, and finally inoculum potential and its density in seed, soil and as well as in the air. And if you see the environmental factors, temperature, humidity, light intensity and wind velocity. So these are all the factors of the epidemics and as well as the components which should be known in advance for the purpose of disease forecasting. Okay, let's see the conditions or the requirements for the disease forecasting. Okay, so there are 5 main requirements which must be satisfied before a useful and as well as successful disease forecast is made. So let's say which are those. Disease must cause a significant damage. Control measures at economical acceptable cost. Third one, the disease must vary with the season. And finally, model must be based on sound investigation work. If you take up with the first requirement or the condition for the disease forecasting, that is, disease must cause significant damage. So here disease must cause economically significant damage in terms of yield loss, or you can say quality. So damage assessment is very much essential to develop strategy for controlling a disease. Say for example, annual estimation of yield loss which is caused by barley powdery mildew getting in England and as well as in Wales has ranged from 6 to 13%. Then potato late blight can cause yield loss of 28% if the disease reaches the 75% stage by mid of the August. So diseases like apple scab and potato common scab reduces the quality of the produce and lower the value of the harvested crop, and it causes a considerable financial loss to the growers. And second condition, the control measures at the economically acceptable cost. So here the control measures must be available at an economically acceptable cost for the growers. And third one is the disease must vary with the season. So disease must vary each season in the timing of the first infection and its subsequent rate of progress. If it does not, there is no need for forecasting. Okay, and yes, the fourth condition. The criteria or the model which is used in making a prediction must be based on the sound investigational work carried out in the laboratory and in the field and tested over a number of years to establish its accuracy and acceptability in all locations. So sorry, here I missed up the another requirement or the condition. So growers, that is, growers must have sufficient manpower and equipments to apply control measures when disease warning is given. See, the long term warnings or the predictions are more useful than the short warnings or the predictions. Now let's see what are all the methods of the disease forecasting. Okay, so there are four methods of disease forecasting. The very first one is forecasting, which is based on the primary inoculums, forecasting based on weather conditions, forecasting based on correlative information, and finally use of computer for disease forecasting. Let us take up with the very first method, that is forecasting, which is based on primary inoculums. See, presence of primary inoculum, its density and viability are determined in the air, soil and as well as the planting materials. So occurrence of viable spores or propagules in the air can be assessed by using different air trapping devices. Uh, they may be called as spore trappers also. So in case of soil-borne diseases, the primary inoculum will be in the soil and it can be determined by monoculture method, and presence of loose matter of wheat, ergot of pearl millet, and viral diseases of potato can be detected in the seed lots at random by different seed testing methods. And seed testing methods can be used to determine the potential disease incidence and enable decision to be made on need for the chemical seed treatment also. The extent of many virus diseases is depend on the severity of the preceding winter, which affects the size of vector population in the growing season. Example like sugar beet yellow virus. Let's move on to the second method of disease forecasting, that is forecasting based on weather conditions. Weather conditions, namely temperature, relative humidity, rainfall, light, wind velocity, etc. So these are the crop season, and during the intercrop seasons are measured. So weather conditions above which have mentioned, the crop and at soil surfaces are also recorded. Next we'll see the third method of disease forecasting, that is forecasting based on correlative information. Weather data of several years are collected and correlated with the intensity of the diseases. Okay, so the data are compared and then forecasting of the disease is done. Forecasting criteria developed from comparisons of disease observation with the standard meteorological data which has been provided for diseases like septoria leaf blotch of wheat, fire blight of apple, and barley powdery mildew. Now let's see the final method of disease forecasting, use of computer for disease forecasting. In some advanced countries, a forecasting of disease is made by use of computers. So this system gives results very quickly. One such computer based programs in USA is now Blindcast for potato late blight. So examples for developed forecasting systems are given. We'll see that now. Let's see the first example, early and late leaf spots of groundnut. A technique that has been developed for forecasting early and late leaf spots of groundnut in USA. When the groundnut foliage remains wet for a period greater than or equal to 10 hours and the minimum temperature is 21 degrees Celsius or for 2 consecutive days or nights, the disease develop is forecasted. A computer program that has been developed in the USA. So this is the accurate and is widely used in USA. The data on hours for day with relative humidity of 95% and above and minimum temperature during the RH observation of the period. Here the RH means to say relative humidity. So for the previous 5 days that has been fed to the computer and the calculations are rounded to the whole numbers. Yes, here the temperature divided by relative humidity, that is RH index for each of the 5 days is calculated during the period of 21.1 degrees Celsius. So the T divided by RH index is 2.0. So the T divided by TH, that means to say the temperature divided by the relative humidity indices for days 4 and 5 are summed. Yes, here is the second examples which makes you to understand very clearly, that is late blight of potato. In USA, a forecasting program has been developed for late blight of potato. The initial appearance of late blight is forecasted 7 to 14 days after the occurrence of 10 consecutive blight favorable days. Okay. A day is considered to be blight favorable when the 5-day average temperature is 25.5 degrees Celsius and the total rainfall for the last 10 days is more than 3 centimeters. Here, a computerized version, that is Blindcast, has also been developed in the USA for forecasting the potato late blight. Here, the Blindcast is written in Fort and 5. When a farmer decides Blindcast, he telephones the Blindcast operator and reports the more recently recorded environmental data. Here, the operator calls for the Blindcast programs in the computer, namely typewriter terminal, and feeds the new data into the computer. Within a fraction of a second, the computer analyzes the data and series of the forecast and spray recommendations to the operator who relays it to the farmer. The entire operations can be completed during standard 3 minutes telephone call. The system makes one of the four recommendations, namely no spray, late blight warning, 7 day spray blight weather. In West Germany, Phytoprog is the program which is being used and it is based on the measurements of temperature, relative humidity, and rainfall. So, Phytoprog provides a negative prognosis and indication of when usual routine spray application should be dispensed with. Next, if you see the third example, southern corn blight or southern corn leaf blight. So EPIME is a system for forecasting southern corn leaf blight, so which is based on the conceptual model. There is a recent research on rice blast disease in India. Forecasting rice blast is done by correlative information method. It is predicted on the basis of minimum night temperature 20 to 26 degrees Celsius in association with relative humidity of 90%. And here the computer based forecasting system has also been done in India. Yes, if you see the last example, that is wheat stem rust. Forecasting wheat stem rust epidemic is done by analyzing the rain samples which give precise data for inoculum present in the air. So moreover, several wind Trajectors are also prepared to survey the airborne primary inoculums and its deposition. Okay, so it has been observed that primary inoculums come from South India to the plains of Central and North India. So this is about the disease forecasting, its meaning, requirements for the disease forecasting, methods of disease forecasting, and finally we got end up with the examples of the plant disease forecasting. In the next video, we'll be coming up with the another interesting topic. Hope you like this video. Please do subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Also never miss an update from me. So stay tuned. See you in the next video. Until then, take care.